Hello everybody, hope you're doing marvelously well. What have we got here? It's quite exciting. We have something from Rupert Neve. He has designed a 2-bus converter with a full functioning limiter in it and loads of different transformer options, basically to give you, I suppose, a huge fat analog sound, but with a limiter that will allow you to compete with anything done inside the box. This is really, really exciting. I haven't heard it yet. And what we're going to do is we're going to pull up a whole bunch of mixes and we're going to put them through this and listen to it. I want to see what the limiter does. I want to see what all of the different functions it's got in there does to color the sound or not color the sound, depending on what you want to do. All I know is it was designed by the man himself, Mr. Rupert Neve, and I know they have put a ton of effort into making something that will be best in class. So let's see if it really is. I'm really, really excited. First thing we have to do is open it up. Okay, here it is. Damage this. I hear there's very few of these at the moment. It's being released today. If you're watching this on Tuesday, you will be seeing it for the first time. They gave us some exclusivity on this because they don't have very many, so they probably couldn't ship it to a lot of people. No, they gave us some exclusivity on it because they know that all you lovely people out there will really, really enjoy this. Wow. It's rather cool. We'll start with the back because I'm holding it that way. We've got an external word clock in and out. Got digital audio outputs, of course, and it's got everything here. That's fantastic. You've got AES, optical, SPDIF, coaxial outputs. Oh, I like the meter peak hold from 1 second to 3 seconds. Looks like they've got balanced line on a TRS and also, of course, on an XLR. And like I said, it's actually quite heavy. Oh, I do remember talking to them. They were very, very proud of the internal power supply in this. They're saying it's super high quality. We've got a whole bunch of tracks here that we're going to listen to. Some are really compressed, off a console, some a little bit more open. Basically, it's console compression. So this would be exactly what would happen. It would come from the console to this, and we would have some limiting and, of course, conversion. So I'm excited to listen to this. So we've set it at 48K. There is a calibration control here, which is going to be very useful if you're coming off a console in particular and you're printing super, super hot. You can bring it up. It's got -14, -16, -18, -20. So that's adjustable from here. We've just got it set at -14 at the moment. But, not everybody is going to be printing at the same level. A lot of people printing in the box these days print signals a lot quieter than we traditionally did in analog, because in analog we were used to smashing our mic pre's pretty hard to get a little bit of grit out of them, hitting tape super, super hard. All of these things meant big, fat, loud tones. And I do know that many people, myself included, probably print a little hotter as a result of coming up in analog than new people, coming up in a completely digital world, which I totally understand. So that gives you, 4 sets of calibration. So that's really, really nice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 100 Hertz sine wave through this, and it's going to demonstrate how the sidechain high-pass filter works. And the reason why I'm going to do this is because it's something that people get confused about. So I want to start by just doing that. So I'm putting 100 Hertz through it now, and you can see we're getting limiting at about, 4 dB worth of limiting going on. So if I take this sidechain high-pass filter here, and I start turning it, you see it's getting louder, the output, the limiting's decreasing, and there you go. So now we're probably just past 100 Hertz, and you can see probably like 120. Now the signal is passing completely cleanly all the way through. That demonstrates what the sidechain high-pass filter does. It's a wonderful tool, meaning if I just want to bring in like a kick drum, I can even figure that out now. Let's just say, I went to 60 Hertz. I mean, you should be doing this by ear, but this is just an illustration of how it works. So I bring that down. There you go. Now at 60 Hertz, that's where it starts to, see, limit. But if I come up about there, now everything below 60 is passing through, meaning the limiting will come in above that. What does that effectively do? It allows your mix to have a lot of really fat low end. And if there's one thing this is designed to do, it is to give you a lot of warmth. All of these functions that it's got here is this transformer in here, this silk control between red and blue, and then the fact that you can adjust the texture that it's bringing. All of that here is all built around actually bringing coloration. And in a digital world where you may not have access to a lot of really beautiful, expensive microphones, expensive mic pre's, you know, tube compressors, tube mics, all of this stuff, lovely stuff, tape and everything being bounced off, all of this stuff that we took for granted for so many decades, they've gone out of their way to add that coloration. Now the transformer, there's 3 modes here because you can bring in just the transformer. So actually just the transformer that's built in. Then you can bring in the 2 coloration modes, which is the red and the blue. And if we go to the manual here, so I don't mess up the explanation. Transformer in, illuminated tactile switch that engages the custom Rupert Neve Design transformer path. Rupert Neve is incredibly famous for making transformers. Yes, we all know he's famous for making 1073s, 1081s, 33609s, 2254s, 1084s. You all know those catchphrases and you see all the plugins and all of the clones and everything else out there. But what he's superbly famous for is making transformers. I had a great conversation with a couple of the guys at Rupert Neve the other day talking about my favorite guitar amp, which of course is a Laney, and that had very famously partridge transformers. Yes, you guessed it, designed by Mr. Rupert Neve. So he has been a designer of transformers, I think that's early 60s, probably 50s. You can look him up on Wikipedia. He's been doing it for decades. And that simple fact of having this in here is going to give you, I suppose, what most people would consider to be the Neve sound. But in true Rupert Neve fashion, he's gone one step further. I was told by them as well that the silk function, the red and the blue, is like an on steroids version of the original idea. So not only is it a transformer, but it's like really can go crazy on the coloration. So that's really exciting. Okay, so the silk illuminated tactile switch offers toggles between red and blue. Okay, let's read about the red and blue. Red adds transformer saturation to the audio path with higher frequency pre-emphasis, and silk adds transformer saturation to the audio paths with low frequency pre-emphasis. So probably, you know, you would associate, I mean, it depends what you want on the mix. If we engage the red, it will push the highs a little bit more, giving you all those additional harmonics and saturation and everything you want, you know, from a transformer. And if you go to the blue, it's going to be the same thing, but in the lows. And if my recollection is right, it's going to be about 400 and below, which is a really rich area. And in the digital world that so many of us are in, I expect those of you that buy this are probably going to have the blue one in all the time, probably cranked, just kind of give you the extra warmth. Transformer in, silk blue, push that, you know, to whatever degree you want to do. I'm really excited to hear the limiter, because the limiter to me is going to be a defining thing, because I think we want all of the Rupert Neve sound, but to add some really good limiting in there is going to really help push us over the edge. Like I said, all of the tracks I've got here are all printed through my SSL, so they've all had SSL bus compression on them, and they've actually had some Pultec EQs applied to them as well, but a boom and fizz, as it were, a bit of 60 and a bit of 10 and 12, just a little tiny bit of boom and fizz. And in a world where we're trying to get competitive, printing with a limiter on a 2-bus digital interface could be very, very good indeed. It could be something we're all dying. Well, I know I'm excited for it. Okay, so let's choose some songs to listen to. All right, so we've linked the channels here in stereo, and according to the old manual there, if one channel gets more limiting than the other, that actually controls the other side. So if I push this really hard, it will push this one harder. If I push this one hard, it pushes that one harder. It keeps it even. So let's turn them both on. I'm going to put the sidechain high passing in. I'll work on the right-hand side. So here we have a track by Steve Magora called Whiskey. Now I chose this because, quite frankly, it's supposed to be big, fat, warm and 70s, and the kick and snare, particularly the snare, are possibly 3 dB too loud for the mix. So I wanted to kind of smash them back in. So here's without the limiting on.
Soon as your whiskey touched my lips, you set a fire to my song, and I'm gonna take it down to heaven.
Happy with what it's doing there. Just, I've got the silk blue in, I'm pushing it really, really hard, I'm adding some extra coloration, and I've got the limiting bringing about 3 dB on, you guessed it, the snare. So have a listen again, and for some visual clues, you'll see just the snare is being caught by the limiter.
Soon as your whiskey touched my lips, you set a fire to my song, and I'm gonna take it down to heaven. We push and pull and won't let go. It's a never-ending merry come and go around once more.
When I brought this down on the sidechain frequency here, you notice it started to compress it quite a bit more. Let's bring it back up again. So it's limiting now on the kick and on the bass, which I don't want it to do. So I like where it was, but I wanted to illustrate the differences. I'm cranking the blue here. Let's turn that off and have a listen to it. Now it's going to be limiting the low end and with no transformer. Now let's go back to the cranked transformer on the silk blue mode, and let's open up the low end and let it breathe. Here we go.
Soon as your whiskey touched my lips, you set a fire to my song, and I'm gonna take it down to heaven.
Fantastic. I mean, you can really hear the low come to life there. Like, I had it cranked pretty heavily on the blue there, you know, because I want this to sound like a 70s recording. And yeah, we had some nice mics, we had some nice stuff, but we also, you know, didn't put it to tape. You know, I'm not claiming this is going to sound like tape, but it's certainly going to bring in all of those elements that I associate with it. That's really beautiful. So that was with the first song, which I knew how I wanted to solve it. So this next track is a little bit more electronica. It does have some, you know, guitars, but it also has a lot of keys and some programming elements. So I'm going to turn all of the clever stuff off for a second and set up the limiting.
Your touch is on my mind, but I've already written you so many rhymes. You're all that I could find, but I've already missed you so many times. You must be from another world.
Now you can tell where we stopped there. It's dying for that sidechain to come in. It was grabbing the bass really heavily. So let's just put that sidechain high pass frequency in.
Say my name, and each night you come home late. I need you to stay new, the rest is getting old. Now that the gold that's shone around me only.
That is an absolutely huge function. And I know it's something that's being offered in a lot of stuff, but you know, this is an interface, remember. It's an interface as well as having the limiter built in, all these functions. Okay, so let's turn on the silk and see if we can just drive that low end. You know what, for Schnitz and Schniggles, let's listen to it just with the transformer first.
Say my name. Pain each night you come home late. I need you to stay new. The rest is getting old. Now that the gold that's shone around me only radiates through you. I need you to stay new. It radiates through you.
Now, it seems like to me, why don't we see what happens if the high end opens up? So we're going to go over to the red now and drive that harder.
I need you to stay new, the rest is getting old. Now that the gold that's shone around me only radiates through you. I need you to stay new, it radiates through you. Stay new, stay new. If every building dropped to dust, if every car.
Wow, that is so dramatic. Okay, so that's a hugely dramatic change when you go between the red and the blue. It's a great illustration. Personally, I love the blue because it's so smooth, but there's probably lots of instances where you might want to go, you know, use the red. Have a listen again.
If every car turned into rust, if all the money burned up, I need you to stay new, I need you to stay new, stay new, stay new. I need you to stay new, the rest is getting old. Now that the gold that's shone around me only radiates through you. I need you to stay new, it radiates through you.
I mean, that is so dramatic what it's doing, so it really does illustrate it. For my ears, I'm probably going to end up, first of all, getting one of these, number one, and secondly, using it a lot on the blue. But there will be instances where maybe I've got a super, super open track, and maybe I just want to liven up the few high mids that are there, and so that would be a great selection for it. But oh, it sounds so good. All right, let's go to a different track. Let's move around and get some different ideas. Here I have a track which is like a 70s glam rock style song, I suppose. And I'm intrigued to see what would happen between the silk settings here.
See me coming, but I get to running on the floor before you know what hits ya. Don't judge by my size, more than meets the eye. My words can pack a punch like no other. Here's a caution, got something to say. Ain't out for purposes of display. Can you hear me? Come and clearly speak. You gotta shout who I wanna be. No apologies. Die before I let you bury me. Who I wanna be. No apologies. Die before I let you bury me. Don't pass over me, I'm quite a good read. So don't you judge this book by its cover. Miscalculate me, I'll make you believe I may be sweet, I sure ain't a sucker. Ain't going nowhere, I'm sorry to say. Before long you will remember my.
I mean, for nothing else, you know, the amount of tracks that you get where there's that, you know, what Steve Markison always calls the fishtailing. This, you know, in the mix, where there's a kick and a snare that's just poking out above it. This is going to be remarkable for that. I can see Pete Lyman, I know, who's a huge Rupert Neve fanatic, is probably going to have this in his arsenal specifically for that. Because just controlling that fishtailing that you get to see quite often, because you notice I haven't moved it from the fastest release time on this. You know, I'm just trying to catch that and have it let go and catch it again. But I could slow it down and see how it works. Let's go to this section again where there's tons of fishtailing in the mix.
Don't pass over me, I'm quite a good read. So don't you judge this book by its cover. Miscalculate me, I'll make you believe I may be sweet, I sure ain't a sucker. Ain't going nowhere, I'm sorry to say. Before long you will remember.
I like what it's doing to that snare. It's giving the snare this kind of oosh, oosh rather than pa, pa. It's listen one more time and I'll adjust the release time.
I'm quite a good read, so don't you judge this book by its cover. Miscalculate me, I'll make you believe. I may be sweet, I sure ain't a sucker. Ain't going nowhere, I'm sorry to.
Very SSL. So Rupert's giving you lots of choice here.
I'm quite a good read, so don't you judge this book by its cover. Miscalculate me, I'll make you believe. I may be.
Yeah, I can see this being really, really super useful. All right, I'm going to go to another song here, which has got tons and tons of strings on it.
Met you, it would be easy for me that way. I wouldn't know about you. Wouldn't miss out on anything you had to say, 'cause you are everything. It's your way, it's your way, it's your way. I know you are enough to make me smile. So I wait for you to appear, the way that you treat me, the way that you're here. So I deny how much you care, the way that you notice when I am not there. So I sit, make me smile. So I wait for you to appear, the way that you treat me, the way that you're here. So I deny how much you care, the way that you notice when I am not there. So I sit and I wait for you. Never knew of anyone who got me like you do. Never knew of anyone who understood. So I sit and I wait.
I like the blues still. I like the blue, but I think I want to go back and remix this song and open that snare up a little bit. It's too, it needs to be brighter without the addition of that, but
You do. Never knew anyone who understood. So I sit and I wait.
all right. There's no doubt you have tons and tons of tonal options. I mean, if I just go here and only use the transformer as it is,
You do. Never knew anyone who understood. So I sit and I wait. I wait for you. So I wait for you to appear, the way that you treat me, the way that you're here. So I deny how much you care, the way that you notice when I am not there. So I wait for you to appear, the way that you treat me, the way that you're here. So I deny how much I care.
it's no doubt this is going to get a lot of use from a lot of people for many reasons. I feel like if you're mixing digital and you want to add some weight and you want to add some coloration, boom, it's there in abundance, number one. I think for guys even mixing through consoles where all of this stuff has been mixed through a console, for instance, this is going to be something they will absolutely love because of the limiting function, just being able to compete. You're competing now against people that are mixing entirely in the box and slamming so much stuff on the master bus. But by the time it gets to a mastering engineer, it's just a blob of square, straight lines, as you know. And this will allow you to control like a little bit of that fishtailing, as you can see, and just print it just a little bit tougher, add that weight, and I don't know, I think it's going to be an amazing tonal use. I mean, I've been thinking about what I can do with limiting on my master bus. And what I always end up doing is taking my mix and then putting it back into Pro Tools again, and then putting some plugins on it and then sending it to mastering. If I just want it to be just that little bit, you know, the punchier. I think they've specifically designed this unit for guys like me to not have to do that. So we can do it all in an analog way. And I know that Pete Lyman's into this, and I know Pete Lyman is one of my favorite mastering engineers in the world, and he and Piper and everybody over there really know what they're talking about. So yeah, it's a good one. There will be links down below to, I don't know, to try it. I'm sure you can go and buy it from Sweetwater and Vintage King and all of the other great retailers that will be selling it. There'll be a link down below for that. There'll be a link down to find out more information. Now I want to have it for a little bit longer than they're letting me have it, just so we can mix through it. Because I think the other thing is as well is like, these are mixes that I did on a console using Pultex and bus compression on there, the 4000 bus compressor. But I'd be intrigued to just leave it somewhere around like here. And just mix into it with that extra warmth on there, you know, with the ability to sidechain it there, with the release not quite at the fastest time, just so it just pushes that snare back in, and just mix into it. And I think, I swear blind, that is what they're designing this to be for. Wonderful work. Thank you ever so much, everybody, for watching. Please leave any comments and questions below. I really appreciate it. Have a marvelous time recording and mixing and mastering. And we'll see you all again very, very soon. So long, farewell, la vie, and au revoir. Adios.